Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Thursday, May 8th. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris, Trevor May here with you. On this episode, we got some breaking news. The Pirates are making a change in the manager role. We'll talk about the team's decision to dismiss Derek Shelton as we get into some baseball news here in just a few minutes. We're going to check in on Roki Sasaki, 7 starts into his big league career. Hasn't gone quite the way some of the more optimistic folks out there, like me, had hoped it would go so far. We'll talk about what changes Roki could make on the fly and what we expect for the rest of the season. We've cooked up a small draft on this Thursday, looking at some starting pitchers who have struggled up to this point. So we'll have that later on in the show as well. And we saw a great piece from Alex Chamberlain over at FanGraphs examining Andrés Muñoz and the unique characteristics of Andrés Muñoz that make him so effective. So we'll dig into that as well. Gentlemen, let's start with the Pirates' decision to fire Derek Shelton. How on earth can you be a person with a brain in a decision-making capacity thinking that firing your manager in this instance will actually change anything? And this is not a specific critique of the Pirates front office. This is a critique of Bob Nutting and ownership and just taking people and just throwing them out of a role, putting someone else in the role and expecting everything to change when you don't do enough to actually improve your organization, right? Like, what is this going to accomplish? Is this going to motivate the 2025 Pirates? Because by all accounts, Derek Shelton is a popular manager, a well-liked guy around the game, and this is not going to change the quality of the cast for whoever steps into this role to take over. So do you ever see a team as bad as the Pirates fire a manager and get an immediately good turnaround sort of result from it?
Who wants to go first? I'll take it. Yeah, no, it probably most of the time, and this is, my perspective on firing managers. It's I think an ongoing conversation that's always going on around the league is like how much of an effect the manager has on games, especially now. And it just comes down to it's a lot of internal politics. It comes down to like how well, if you have, a front office that is more of a micromanager, or they set a really detailed plan before games and the manager like is on board with that stuff, they tend to hang out for a little bit longer. I know that by all accounts, Scott Service was like that with the Mariners for a while. Like him and DePoto were constantly always on the same page, which allows you to get a little bit of a longer leash. And, by all accounts, Shelton's been there for a while too. And he's a pretty amiable guy. But it comes down to, you start getting pressure from somewhere, whether it's the fan base or the ownership or the league, like whatever it is, you get pressure. The people that make these decisions then start to find somebody a fall guy. And it feels like it's a fall guy situation because in terms of, getting ready to game planning and stuff, it doesn't seem like he's making bad managerial decisions or that he doesn't know what he's doing. There are managers that make bad decisions and you can see them. He's just not one of them. It's not something that you've seen him do. So then you go, okay, well, how are we grading your performance? Like, what's the rubric look like? And with the Pirates, we don't know. We haven't known for years. Like, it's really hard to tell what they're trying to do from top to bottom, and they just seem like they're just behind. I put them in the group, and this is probably really mean right now. Put them in the group with the Rockies. It's just like, are you guys watching anyone else play baseball? Like, have you guys watched anyone but your own team? It is kind of a head scratcher, and it's just unfortunate that the manager in that situation a lot of times is the guy that, they're like, we're shaking things up. Look how hard we're trying. We're going to fire the guy that, that's the obvious choice, the top of the list. So, and that's what it feels like for me. I don't know I don't think it's going to change anything. I don't know, who else do they have? Like, who's taking over? Maybe Derek, you could tell me that. Are they just going, bench coach, you're now the manager? Is that what they're doing? Or are they bringing somebody else in real quick?
Don Kelly has been elevated to the manager spot.
Okay.
Don is well liked, and I think Shelton is well liked around the league and within the Pirates. And I think they were a team that had the manager sort of, have one foot in the front office, like you're sort of mentioning, that, they're all kind of working together on lineups and things like that. So then, this is just on some level an admission that things aren't going as well as they want. There's pressure on the organization to make a change. This is unfortunately one of the easier changes you can make. They've already changed their hitting coach, and so you kind of go up the line from there. You can't say they're not hitting because they're hitting coach. You had 2 or 3 chances at a hitting coach, and they're still not hitting. They are projected to hit better than this. They have scored 3.1 runs per game, worst in baseball. They're supposed to score 4.2 runs per game, and that's still, not one of it's like third worst, but it's still better than 3. So there's still a run missing per game from that offense. I think some of it is bad luck. We've talked about this one with other organizations when we talk about them. It's like, we talked about the Orioles and their luck. Right now, the Pirates, most of their infield is on the IL. They were supposed to have Spencer Horwitz, Nick Gonzalez, and IKF at first, second, third. Not great offensive players, but I think Horwitz is decent. And they traded for him to, be their first baseman. So there's injuries part of the story, but also you go and get Spencer Horwitz, who's kind of like a, doubles and singles guy, and you're going to play him at first. Nick Gonzalez, you draft really high, and it's been this up and down thing, and he hasn't really, shown you long stints of what he was supposed to be. IKF would be one of the worst offensive shortstops, and honestly, one of the worst overall shortstop situations in the game. And Brian Hayes has been up and down himself. They've never quite been able to unlock him. You go get Tommy Pham for left field. It's just the moves are tiny. The moves are tiny, and the biggest thing they've done is extend Brian Reynolds, who's been struggling a little bit this year and probably contributing some of this offensive downturn. But you can't build an offense on Brian Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz alone and then say, why don't we have any offense? You know what I mean? It's really like they have 2 good hitters and then a bunch of tiny little moves. They have a bunch of moves that people would do for like the last spot on the bench. Like IKF. Yeah. I'm not trying to be mean to a single player. I'm just saying IKF, great bench player. You know what I mean? Like that would be really top end utility guy. Starting shortstop, and you could say that for too many of their guys. Like how many bench players can you have? They seem like they have like 6 or 7. So is it like on Shelton that there's some roster construction problems here too?
Yeah, the draft hasn't been good either. You mentioned Gonzalez, but Henry has not panned out. Zawinski hasn't really panned out the way they wanted.
Johnson was a big risk that may still have time to pan out, but I don't think he hasn't been like, oh, here's our top pick that just blew through the minors and here he is,
Outside of Skeens, they're just not hitting on offense at all.
I know the park has something to do with it, but
the park plays the way it is, but the park also it's pretty consistent. Like
it's also know by now San Francisco, it's not Seattle. It's just like a conventional, slightly pitcher park,
Bob Nutting bought the Pirates in 2007. Counting this season, how many seasons have they been in last place?
So how many seasons is it overall?
It would be 07 to 25 was like 17 seasons, I think. 18 seasons.
They had a little good run with Kutch and stuff. Yeah, you going with 12? I'm going with 10.
That was 9. 9 counting this year. They're in last place right now if the season were to end today. They've made the playoffs 3 times. That was all consecutive years.
Kutch,
yeah, 13, 14, and 15. There's a few other things there's one other thing in particular that just kind of jumps off the page to me is you look at when they were good, 13, 14, 15, those playoff teams, and what they did in the years right after that. At that point, they kind of pushed their opening day payroll out from the bottom 5 into that next 5. They were 24th, 20th, and 24th in 2015, 2016, and 2017. So they spent a little bit more, between 90 and 99.9 million.
100, they were close
on their opening day payroll per COTS. And they haven't even gone back to that in the time since. They're not even spending what they were spending 10 years ago on opening day payroll.
Yeah, once
that is not how this is supposed to work. You're right. Count inflation. Like that's not at all. That's not even treading water. That's getting worse.
I mean, that's part of these small moves, right? That's why you have to trade for Spencer Horwitz or sign Adam Frazier. It's like you're not swimming in the same waters as other guys. Like I know Christian Walker's not playing well right now, but they could have gotten in. They could have gotten in there for Christian Walker, and that might have been a good move, in another universe where Walker's hitting better and stuff, But like,
how much
would have been a better idea?
I think I could see this winter if someone came to you in the front office with a pitch to come play for the Pirates as a free agent. You're like, yeah, I'm excited about your pitching. You're a couple bats away. Like maybe you can be a playoff team. Like there were reasons to be optimistic, but I think historically, aside from being frugal, I think it's been a place where free agents have been reluctant to go anyway because of the futility. Like, why would you sign on for that? Knowing that the other resources around you are not going to be there.
It's definitely the Pirates offer you something, you go, all right, cool, thanks, guys. Anyone else?
Yeah, shop that dealer around.
Leverage.
Yeah.
Nope. All right, at the end of the day,
what the Padres did at one point.
AAA teams, so let's go there.
Well, one of the Padres, the Padres overpaid for Eric Hosmer early on, and I think that on some level, the Padres were a team that you didn't really want to go to, and I think signing Eric Hosmer was kind of like, hey, we actually have money. We're going to spend some money. And I think that led to the Machado deal, which has led to a lot of other spending. And now if you're Gavin Sheets and the Pirates are calling and the Padres are calling, it's pretty obvious, which call you accept. So I'm not saying that the Pirates need to go out and overspend on a big deal and get in trouble, but maybe overspend on a small deal. That's why I'm bringing up Walker. It's like maybe overspend on a guy on 3 years and 4 years, and you're not stuck too long on that thing at the end. And maybe you have a good year and Walker's hitting well, and then the next year someone's like, "Oh yeah, I'll take your 1 year deal." You know what I mean? It's just trying to take it's the smallest deals possible. They're really not even in the 1 in 10 business. They're in the 1 in 3 business. And I don't know what you can do with that.
It's a tough place to live. Now, I think some of the things the Pirates have done well would be on the pitching side. Drafting Paul Skeens 1-1 was probably a layup. I think most teams would have made that pick, but it's more the depth. It's more guys like Thomas Harrington and Bubba Chandler. And you look at the next wave they're going to have coming through. And Chandler should be in the big leagues now. The success of Jared Jones, we talked about that a lot last year. They've done better. They've started to put pieces in place, I think, where you can look at them and say they might be an organization that has that side figured out. But it's that position player development, that scouting and development on that side. That's where they've really lagged. And if you're going to be cheap, then you've got to do both of those things well. That's the only way to survive. Or you have to be so exceptionally good at flipping your pitching for hitting and developing so much pitching that you have the excess that you make up ground on that side. Or that you are really good at finding guys on pillow deals, finding the guys that need the 1 year deal. Maybe they're not going to sign a 4 year deal to come to Pittsburgh, but you can get them for a year because you got a great reputation for fixing hitters. They don't have that. So it's just kind of a question of what are they going to fix next? What's really going to change that's going to move this franchise further in the right direction? Because they've been stuck in the same place for basically a decade plus now.
I just get the sense that they haven't had a very a great plan that everybody's on board with and we're going. When I talk to Jason Ochart, he goes to Boston for hitting and he's like, we're about bat speed. We're about competitive work environments. We're about, this is what I'm about. Are we on board with this? Will you give me all the resources to do this? Will I be able to hire everybody I want? Will I have to keep people around just because they've been around, or, you know what I mean? Can I just come in and run this the way I want? And they were like, yes. And they weren't lying. He went in and he hired all the people he wanted and they're doing exactly what he wanted to do. And they're having some success. I think the Pirates have shown that they will hire people and they've gone through these successive hirings, but people are already leaving the Pirates. I didn't really realize this until I saw the LinkedIn, but Sean Ahmed, who's their director of R&D, is now with the Tigers. So we've seen some people leave for other opportunities, maybe to get out of there, and we've also seen people get fired out of there. So something's not healthy in there. Something's not working right.
I think it's the ownership. I think that's where I think if you could change that, you might actually have some other things that will get better. But I don't know. Pirates fans, among the fans that deserve better out there. And I don't think the Shelton firing is going to change your fortunes all that much here in 2025. Some good news follow-ups here, just as we get rolling. Hunter Greene left his start on Wednesday after 3 innings. It was a groin injury, so at least it wasn't an elbow or a shoulder. We'll see if that requires any sort of IL stint. We saw Dylan Cease carrying a no-hitter deep into that start against the Yankees leave early with what they're calling forearm cramps. So
it wasn't that early. He made it into like the 7th or something.
Oh, it was late in the game. He carried a no-hitter late into the game.
It was after the no-hitter, dropped out.
After Bellinger homered off him, right?
Yeah.
Forearm cramps. I mean, they're saying it's cautious removal right now, so probably okay. It looks like Corbin Burns is going to start on Saturday, so some good news there. Zach Eflin's supposed to come back this weekend. Mostly good news on the injury front, including Yordan Alvarez. I think his IL stint's going to be the minimum with that muscle strain in his hand. The one that I'm a little nervous about is William Contreras playing through a fractured finger. Like, how does a fractured finger get better if you're catching? It couldn't, right? If it's on your catching hand, your glove hand, it would never get better. But I feel like even if you keep playing through it as a hitter, it's going to keep getting worse.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of the cortisone shot thing. Honestly, just like the put a Band-Aid on it, especially with the fracture, because you're just that doesn't help you heal. It depends on the type of fracture,
or
if
reduces all the inflammation around it, and
then you just and it doesn't.
A lot of the inflammation is your body trying to heal it, right?
Yeah, so like, I don't know if it were September 27th and they're going to the playoffs. Yeah. But you have time. You have time to heal, especially like those little hand fracture stuff. That's like a 4-week. Sometimes like just a couple weeks off, you can get ahead of it enough to where getting back into catching is like not going to hurt it enough. But it depends. Is it like a stress reaction thing, or is it like was it an impact thing? Was it a swing thing? Like what happened? So it depends on the type as well. But I'm just never a fan. I just feel like that stuff is like never like. They never go back to normal. It's like they deal with it all year. And this is a good example that guys who are dealing with something all year tend to not perform close to as well as they normally do.
Yeah, you hear at the end of the year, the thing in my hand kind of.
And even at this point, it's the perfect explanation for why William Contreras has a .331 slug and a 3.1% barrel rate. That's just not who he's been as a hitter to this point in his big league career. So, yeah, we have the explanation, but it just seems like a tough injury to shake off if you're going to keep playing through it. All right, let's get into Roki Sasaki's rookie season so far. It just hasn't been what I had hoped, at least. I thought Roki could hit the ground running with the occasional bump in the road. I mean, he's a 23-year-old. All 23-year-olds breaking into the big leagues for the first time aren't going to have smooth sailing. But the extent of the bumps... much worse, right? 17.9% K rate so far. I thought at a minimum, we'd get lots of strikeouts from Roki, even if the command wasn't consistent and he carried an elevated walk rate or an elevated home run rate as he sort of adjusted to the big league ball of facing big league hitters. It's a 3.86 ERA, a 1.45 whip, only 24 Ks in 30 and a third innings. And that's, again, 7 starts. So he's not giving them a lot of length in those starts either. What do you think the problem has been, Trevor, the primary problem for Roki Sasaki? And were some of us wrong for being as aggressively pushing him, saying he could be a top 25, top 30 type starting pitcher from the jump upon arrival?
There's a few things, I think. One really interesting thing that I'm noticing about Japanese players coming over, even ones that are really good, it doesn't seem like Japan has really committed to the high fastball thing. Like these guys are forcing fastballs, but they all still try to get the ball down in the zone, like to get strike one. And Roki is trying to do that, but he's throwing it mid-thigh a lot. So his fastball command is not very good. He also has a dead zone fastball a little bit too. He throws hard, but like it's like, the 15 ride, 11 inches of arm side run. Like these aren't great. And he's got a high arm slot. So it's like, it looks like it's going to move that way too. So his fastball just isn't going to perform. He can't just go up there and pound fastballs in because he doesn't have the command and it doesn't move in the way that you would normally want that fastball to move in order to set his forkball splitter thing up, which is his best pitch by far. So one, like this is something I had to remember having a conversation with Fujinami.
Yeah.
When Fuji came over, I asked him, where are you trying to throw your fastball? He's like, down, middle. I'm like, you throw 102. What do you mean? And he also had a dead zone fastball. And I was like, you should never throw your fastball down the zone ever on purpose. Not one time for the rest of the year. I want you to do that. So, and it was just something he'd never heard before. He literally never heard it. And I was like, that's crazy to me. So that's one thing that I would say he needs to commit to is getting in the top of the zone, getting strikes there too, because he has long extension. So at least he has a lower release height, even though he's got a high arm slot. That could play into his, I guess, arsenal a little bit better. But I think his slider is actually better than he uses it. It's got a lot of depth. It's kind of a curveball movement wise. I know it doesn't spin like that, but it's got a lot of depth. And his splitter is the best. I think the best one. If he's dialed in with that, nobody's touching it. You could tell him it's coming. So it just comes down to command, learning when to use those things, and using your. He's got to learn to use his pitches. The things he throws, he needs to use them more effectively. And this was the knock on him, right? It was he was not going to have great command right away. It's just going to be electric stuff, and he's not throwing 102. He's throwing 97. So that's hittable in the major leagues. I just think it's a combination of things, and also his leash is about 1 centimeter long, so it's like. A lot has to go perfectly right in order for him to throw 6 innings too. So I'm not going to hold that against him. Like they're just not going to let him throw 6 innings. It just comes down to when are you throwing your pitches and where are you throwing them and where are you trying to? And I think he's learning how to have intentions that he never had in Japan. And honestly, Yamamoto had that a little bit last year. That was a little bit of his problem too. He struggled to really throw the fastball top of the zone consistently. And, he has learned it this year. Now he's absolutely electric. But yeah, you can see there on the left, the four seam fat. Those are right down the middle. That's middle. And it looks like he's trying to go up there, but he's so used to throwing down that it's like transitioning up. That and the splitter being all over the place. But I think that's just something that's going to be part of it because he has a splitter that tumbles. Kind of a
fork. It's like a fork ball.
If that was animated and we saw the spin, it's crazy. It's like a slow curveball spin. And anyone who's tried to throw a splitter and get it to spin like that, not very easy. Not easy to do, to get it to go the opposite way of your hand. It's pretty crazy.
It's like a feel for lack of spin, which is
crazy. But it's also potentially like elite to a level like it's a unicorn type pitch, right? Nobody else throws anything like that. It could be a hater fastball, airbender type of pitch if he's like rolls out of bed and able to throw wherever he wants it. If he learns that, it's one of those type pitches. So at least he has that. And I think that's worth it being excited about.
Yeah, I think if you look at those heat maps again for location, like what you'll see is that like if you tell this player right now he needs a strike, which one is he throwing? Like the slider's kind of all over the place, the split finger's kind of all over the place. He's throwing the four seamer, and he's throwing the four seamer alone, and he's throwing it middle. Middle away, middle in, middle away to righties, middle into lefties. That's it. And so it's too easy to keyhole him. And I think, I went and looked through, and the fastball's not good, even though it's 97 miles an hour. I think we've just now have a more refined sense, thanks to the kind of research that's behind stuff. Plus, we have a more refined sense of what a good fastball is. It's not just velo. It's not just ride. It's a combination of those things. And you mentioned the dead zone. I went and looked and tried to find comps for his fastball. And, I was looking through them. And at first, I was going to use raw movement. And so you can say that Roki Sasaki, gets, what is it, like 14 IVB or something on his fastball? Yeah, 14 IVB with 10 inches of arm side. And so I thought I'll just use that. But over at Alex Chamberlain's site, he's got a new set of stats there that's based off of Max Bay's dead zone. So what the dead zone is your arm slot, basically your arm angle gives across like basically intentions of or where your fastball is going to move. Like generally your fastball moves in a certain way. If your slot is over the top, or if it's 3/4, or if it's a side armor. And so Alex Chamberlain has these vertical dead zone. He has a VDZD. I don't know what they all stand for. Dead zone delta. So he's a vertical dead zone delta, and he has a horizontal dead zone delta. And it's basically saying versus the dead zone, how much movement do you have? And so instead of using raw movement, I used dead zone deltas to find his comps. And the comps that I found were not super exciting. Herman Marquez, this year's Virgin, Michael Lorenzen, Cal Quantrill, although Cal Quantrill, it's 3 miles an hour difference velo, and that matters still. But Cal Quantrill's on there. Tony Santillan is a comp. And then this one, I think the one that's up on the screen right now is the best comp, Nate Eovaldi. It's not a perfect comp because you see that Nate Eovaldi, his arm slot is lower. But if you kind of think, just look at the movement chart and look at the arm angle, and you can see, Sasaki's fastball moves like that, and his arm angle is there. Eovaldi's is lower, and it's there. You can almost see how they're dead zone fastballs. They're high velo dead zone fastballs. The reason I bring up Eovaldi is he's always had a dead zone fastball. We didn't know what to call it when he came up. We called it straight or whatever it was. We knew it was a great fastball in terms of velo, but not other things. And I wrote a piece once for FanGraphs saying no fastball is too big to hide. And I was basically saying Eovaldi is taking off now because he's throwing the splitter 40% of the time and the slider. So I just want to throw that up really quickly again, because I think there's one pitch that's super important on this. If you look at what's missing between these two, Eovaldi has a splitter. Eovaldi has a curve that goes 76. Sasaki has a slider goes 82. They have similar-ish movements. They're kind of sidewaysy. They're over there. Their splitters aren't the same, but they occupy reasonably similar places in the constellation of their pitches. The thing that Sasaki is missing is a cutter. It's the thing that Eovaldi has. It's the thing that Eovaldi can go to if he needs a strike and he doesn't want to throw a four seam. And so the cutter would be the thing. And also toggling the percentages so that Sasaki is no longer throwing a four seam 52% of the time that people love to hit. They don't get any whiffs on that four seam. So just take that four seam and chop it down to 30% and throw a cutter in there. He trusts to throw 20% of the time. And I think he could have a Nate Eovaldi like second act. It's going to take some time though, because, I was talking to the Braves about what they do in their time between starts. And they said that their bullpen in between starts is 12 to 15 pitches. Now imagine you're Roki Sasaki, you're 23 years old, your pitcher's coach is telling you, hey, we need a cutter. When does he put together the cutter? It's probably not going to be during this season. I mean, Lugo did it, and some guys, some veterans. Lugo has 10 pitches. Are we surprised that he was able to add pitches in season? Not really. But like for a guy who's been dominating on 2 or 3 pitches in Japan, for him to add, if he's only throwing like 15 pitches in the bullpen, Trevor, you did bring up one way that he could be working on it. That's other than the bullpen. There's another thing you do in between starts where, he could be playing around with his four seam grip, trying to get a cutter grip, trying to get a sinker, something like that.
Yeah, it's the only other thing that pitchers do. That's play catch. So, either they're throwing bullpen or playing catch. And for some of the really behind the times teams, they're shagging BP. But and that's honestly, catch was my number one learn a new thing. But I always had an opportunity. We always had 2 bullpen catchers. This is actually really interesting. Starting pitchers a lot of times are out there either before or after bullpen guys. So like you don't have to pair up with another pitcher. You can pair up with a bullpen catcher. So it's, for all intents and purposes, like you have a guy who can catch every pitches you're trying to get to move and that are maybe a little bit inconsistent or maybe erratic. Like you have somebody with the catcher's mitt on him, maybe a mask, and you're feeling more comfortable throwing it hard. That is something that that's probably is doing.
For catch play, right? Like you don't like you're going to throw something that's really moving and really hard at another pitcher.
I mean, there's some guys that don't care. I never played catch with those guys. The beauty of when I was used to play catch, be like, hey, I'm going out to 300 feet, by the way. So there was always like one guy I could get to play catch with me, and then most of the time I would have a bullpen catcher be the cutoff guy for the guy I'm playing catch with. So that's I was very specific, and that helped me weed out the weaklings. But I would say get with your just throw, he should just be messing with grips constantly, and catches the time that you get the confidence in that stuff anyways too, and you can feel stuff. But I agree wholeheartedly with the second fastball idea, and also it's funny that Eovaldi was the comp, because I've had anecdotal evidence anecdotes a lot from Ottavino, who's really good friends with Eovaldi, and then he basically calls him a kitchen sink pitcher, and he learned to do that because he had that fastball that they couldn't explain why 99-100 was getting hit like it was back then. And he committed to it really quickly. He's like, okay, whatever. I throw really hard. I'm not going to be like, oh, it should be better. I'm just going to say, okay, it's not as good as it.
What should I throw? What else should I
throw? And he's like, I'll throw everything. And
he
got that confidence really quickly to where he can change his game to game. He just wildly changes his arsenal.
He doesn't have a great feel for spin. He's not a guy who throws a great breaking ball.
Nothing's great, but he just he throws hard enough, and he is power enough that having 5-6 pitches thing is enough to have him have some dominant outings. And most of the time,
what if Lugo threw 96 even with a crappy fastball? He'd be better.
He would be absolutely
pretty
disgusting.
good. But that's the idea of
the world if he's throwing 98.
6 pitches, and none of them are great, except you still have to honor 95, 96.
Yeah. But he knows that. So that's the difference. Eovaldi's is a good pitcher, and I think you can count on him. And I think that over the years, people have felt really comfortable being like, he's going to be who he is, and he's going to make the adjustments because he committed to the fact that, I don't have that pitch that's just like, I'm going to throw this only today. No one's going to touch it. I just don't have that. And I throw hard, and this is what I do. And so I'm going to maybe roll a 6-sided die and pick the pitch and start from there.
I mean, he's been ever since he kind of figured that out. He's been pretty nails, dude. I mean, he's had an ERA under 4 now for 6 straight years, and good strikeout rates. And this is in the face of a declining fastball. So he's really figured it out. And
Roki, on the other hand, has a demon splitter. So he's got something that Eovaldi doesn't have. And if that becomes if he commits to this side where all these pitches are just there so I can get to that pitch that is unhittable, then he could be a step up, which I think is within the realm of possibility. He's just got to commit to it.
I was thinking about this from another angle. If the Dodgers get to the point where they've got enough of their starters healthy, do you think Roki is better served staying with the big league club in some kind of flexible, maybe a long relief role, right? They're trying to be careful with his innings, and they want full control over his development. Keeping him on the roster as the last guy in the bullpen is probably something they would choose over optioning him down to AA or AAA, right? I mean,
getting some use out of him, but then in games he's not going to flesh out his full arsenal. You're trying to get him to throw more pitches, and then he's going to go into games and be a reliever. He's just going to throw the fastball in the split.
In short relief, for sure. In longer relief, maybe they'd have enough there where they could push that new pitch and still have situations where they feel comfortable letting him kind of learn on the fly. Even with all the starters they could have back at some point, that's a huge if. Do you think he sticks on the big league roster in some capacity all season, or do you think the things we're seeing will lead to at least a brief demotion to the minors where he can work as a starter, absolutely work on things with a capital W without even worrying about results initially, and then come back, at some point later on this year?
That's a tough one. I think that
it depends on when. I think.
I think also the key number right now is that the starters in LA are averaging 4.5 innings per outing. That's like a full inning less than the Royals, who are getting the most. They're about to have maybe they're on pace to have the 5th fewest innings from their starters in the history of baseball. So I think that there's enough urgent need that he'll stay up. I can't see all these guys being healthy at the same time and then being like, oh, now we're suddenly flush with arms. It seems like another one of these years where they did this last year and they won it all anyway. But like, there was a point at least last year, you're like, who's starting? Like, who's in this rotation? What is going on? Everyone's hurt. And that you're like, oh, the Dodgers, they're doing that again. So if he's healthy, I think he's up.
Can you imagine if they didn't trade for Flaherty? They would have had one pitcher.
I joke that even the when they won the World Series, like they had no idea who would start the next day.
They really didn't.
And if Walker Buehler hadn't turned it on, like
exactly.
I mean, if Walker Buehler had just been who he'd been in October, then I don't think they win that thing.
You make it great
in September.
You make a really good point. Like if it's between Roki Sasaki or bullpen games,
yeah,
they're gonna make Roki. Like they just don't have.
Yeah.
And so, and then when no one else in the rotations really like lighten up the inning total either, like it's hard. It does not as glaring either. Like you're like, well, we got to be patient with everybody. Like nobody's going deep in the game. So why would we penalize this guy for that? And he is making the, small steps in the right direction that we feel like he should be making. So it just comes down to how you're analyzing him. And then whether or not you want to just take all that pressure off and you just want to say, hey, here's what we want you to do. Go down there. And then I'm sure he'll have some minor league development person that's with him the whole time, probably around making sure he's getting everything he needs, and he'll get a little bit of special treatment probably. So because sometimes you can go down and then they're like, hey, work on this thing. And then everyone's like, what are we working on? I don't know.
It would be more like almost like a coach would go with him or something. Like the director of pitching would just be there like the whole time.
It would be in a lot. And guys would be like, wow, look, they're watching us.
Look who's here. Awesome. He's usually only here a couple times a year.
Look who's here. Let's have our draft. We put together a draft board. I'll try to share it on the screen. We'll see what this actually looks like. Is it going to be impossible to use? Let's see. Say this. Go. What's this going to look like with 3 people? No, just black. There you go, guys. Good luck. Good luck with the draft. Good work all around. There we go. We got to make it bigger.
There we go.
Enhance.
Oh, there you go.
Enhance. All right. So, no, come on. See, the problem with screen sharing is that I don't need all this stuff at the top that I can't chop that off, man. Like we need more functionality
within it.
Yeah. I could scroll down, but I can't move the whole window, which is really, really annoying. Anyway, for those of you who are just listening, that didn't make any sense. We'll cut that all out. I put together a board of guys who have pitched at least 10 innings this season in a starting role. And then I filtered down for strikeout rates below 20% or equal to 20%, just to make sure we got one more name in there. And walk rates above 10%, because generally a combination of skills like that is a pitcher that we're not all that excited about. And some very interesting names, including Roki Sasaki, are on the list, right? So we've got this list has Sandy Alcantara, Corbin Burns, Tanner Bybee, Taj Bradley. It's got guys like Chris Paddock. It's got Jackson Jobe. It's got Sasaki and Mitchell Parker and Tobias Meyer. So it's got back end guys. It's got guys that are supposed to be aces and a few in between. We're going to try to draft 4 each and see who ends up with the best result at the end of the season. I think should we just use flat out WAR, because we're talking about innings and some sort of success?
That's sort of strikeout rate specific a little bit. Maybe RA9 WAR.
RA9 WAR. Okay, so whoever has the highest RA9 WAR from their 4 pitchers at the end of the season, gets jumbo bags of the nerds clusters from everybody else on the show?
Is this from this point on? Or is this a whole aggregate the whole year?
Yep. You don't count anything that's happened so far. So we'll do a custom leaderboard at the end of the year. I'll put some notes in the calendar. It's available now. Yeah, because there's a few guys below the fold. I'll scroll so you can see them down there. I mean, you guys have the full sheets, so it's not like a big deal. But just so everybody on YouTube could follow along. I think we'll do it like this. We'll do the 4 rounds. It'll snake. I don't care if I have the first pick. Do either of you want the first pick? Trevor says no. Do you want the first pick?
Top to bottom.
All right. Top to bottom. All right. I'm on top, though. I have to go first. That sucks.
Exactly.
I don't want the first pick. That's horrible. Never going to win these nerds clusters. All right. Trying to get the best possible combination out of this mess. I'm going to take Corbin Burns with the first pick. We got the good news on the shoulder. I looked back at his career, tried to find a run as bad as what he's been on to start the season. And you go back to 2023, he had a little stretch in May and early June that was kind of like this. It's just a leap of faith that we're bouncing back to an acceptable level overall, right? There's nothing I'm seeing specifically that I'm overly confident in. It's just believing that he's not going to be this bad this quickly. So hopefully that shoulder injury is not much of a problem. But he seems like a guy that just doesn't belong on this list at all. Like nothing about the start of Corbin Burns' season actually makes sense to me so far.
I mean,
I agree.
You didn't want first pick. I mean, that's the most obvious first pick you could have.
Yeah.
We would have all taken him.
It tails off a lot though. There's value, I think, in being in that 3 spot, but we'll see how this plays out.
All right. For me, this is a crapshoot. I don't even know how to really approach this. I'm gonna go with Tanner Bybee. He's a member of the Guardians, and he also has finished strong in both of his seasons. So I just think that he's a guy who's going to bounce back, and the team is going to he's going to rattle off some really good starts, and then he's going to throw a lot of innings. So I think there's going to be a good opportunity for some more there.
I think Bybee has 4 pitches right now that are still above average in Stuff Plus. So yeah, I think that's going to be a fine way to start off your rotation in this particular draft. Eno gets 2. Man, we're going to regret this. Eno getting 2 picks this early is going to be bad for all of us.
That's what I'm happy about. I'm taking Sandy Alcantara. We've got a great track record. I know it's slow to come online, but we've talked about how the command comes late from Tommy John. And what I'm seeing is in his last start, he had the best location plus he'd had in his last 5 starts. And I think it's starting to come around, especially because he had the best location plus on his slider they'd had all season. And that's the pitch that we talked about. Why do you not throw the slider when you come back from Tommy John? Well, now he's throwing it. I think over the course of the season, as he throws those breaking balls, he's just going to come back online and be great. Plus, I'm a stuffist, and he still has his stuff second on this list in Stuff Plus. The next one, I think I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit. I'm going to take the guy that has the best Stuff Plus, even though he has not shown the results yet, and that is Jackson Jobe. I don't know if that is going on a limb or not. He's not really showing the strikeout rate. K-BB says this is a bad pick. K-BB is predictive at this point in the season. He has one of the worst K-BBs on this list, but he has a nice home park. He throws 97, and I just think that there's something that's going to click. We're going to have a story this year where it's like Jackson Jobe turfed the this, or he added the this, or he decided this, and it's going to all come together for him. That's where I see Jackson Jobe right now. He's got all the tools, and he just needs to put them in the right order.
I think based on the model and everything, that makes all the sense in the world. I'm hoping Jobe's not one of the, if the model says he's good, why isn't he better type guys? But it makes all the sense that you could possibly want for that 4th spot, because this thing tapers off terribly at this point.
Yeah, the list, there's only a couple other guys that I would want with that pick, and so I'm happy to just go with the young guy that might put it all together.
I'm only confident in my first pick. That's it. So I'm going to go way out on a limb and say a guy who is wildly underperformed his projections and has the biggest difference between his ERA and his FIP of anybody, and that's Charles Morton.
Whoa.
I'm going to take Charlie. Yes, I'm going to take Charlie because 1, the guy throws 30 starts every year. 2, I just don't think. I think when the Orioles, I don't think they're going to fully turn it around, but I do think they're going to play better, and I think that he is going to benefit from some of that. He also has the highest strikeout rate on this list, even with those things going on. So he's had a little bit of bad luck. It's not all bad luck. Let's be very clear. He has not thrown well, but his track record over a lot of years is healthy and swing and miss and kind of turning on a little bit. Now he started really, really slow the last 2 years before this year as well, and then got better as the year went on. That happens when you're older as well. It just comes down to, is he going to be able to figure it out before he has to move on? And that's the thing with them right now. If they can afford to wait for him to figure it out. Fortunately, they have another old guy in the rotation as well that they're also going to be thinking about for those situations at Kyle Gibson. So like, there's hope. But like, he could be off the team in a week and then I'm just screwed. So we'll see. But I'm a big believer in Charlie Morton, and I don't know what else to do.
Well, hey, keeping the job will be important, because a lot of the guys on this list could get bounced entirely, could get optioned to AAA, could become relievers. A lot of different outcomes, I think, on the table here. I'm going to take Taj Bradley with the next pick. It's probably actually a toss-up between Bradley and who I'll take with my round 3 pick. I'll take Roki with the round 3 one, because I think there's a massive dip. I mean, even with all the concerns we outlined, the command problems, the need for the cutter, the Dodgers need him at least for a little while, probably for most of what's left of this season. So there will be some innings, even if they're monitored. It's some faith that he can make some adjustments. It's the faith in the organization that they're going to encourage him. It's the faith that maybe the command of the fastball will gradually improve over the course of the year, even if he doesn't add the cutter. But I do, looking at the 4-seamer and looking at the results on it, Roki's been fortunate so far with the 4-seamer compared to his X stats. So things could get worse before they get better. I've got that kind of rattling around in the back of my mind.
That came on his BD does not predict a sub-4 ERA. So
no, it does not. So there's a little more risk cooked in there. With Taj Bradley, we've talked about him a lot over the last year or so on this show. It just seems like he also needs something else in that arsenal, and it's not there yet. I'm surprised the walk rate is up again this year. I'm hoping because he's in Tampa, even though it's not the Trop, that we'll see some kind of tweak along the way. It's blind faith that they'll finally get the adjustment right with Taj, even though we haven't seen it happen just yet.
All right. Well, okay, then I'll take Jeffrey Springs.
Springs, okay.
Yeah.
Why? What do you see? Yeah, what do you like about him?
Not a lot, but
keeping the job.
He has a job. Like, for example, a lot of the other guys on this list, let's just talk about like Taijuan Walker, Logan Evans. Like, as soon as one of the two, Kirby or Gilbert, come back, Evans is gone.
I've been circling
Taijuan,
Evans, and
he's on the list.
Thinking about picking Evans, and I don't know if he has the job.
And Taijuan, as soon as one guy comes back, he's going to get moved too. Like, it doesn't matter really how he throws, I don't think, at this point. So they're kind of really on the edge, and Springs just isn't outside of an injury. He's just not going to be in trouble of not getting innings. So I'm going on. They're going to rely on him a little bit more, and he's the veteran guy. I just know how Kotze and the squad works over there. And if you have some veteran status or some veteran time, they give you they depend on you. They give you a longer leash, and the team's been playing pretty well. So I think he's going to pitch better than he has.
Yeah, you're going to take on the water of the ratios accrued so far. So in that case, yeah, I think you got the clean slate to work with. But job security probably higher than just about anybody left on the board at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Okay. Okay. Jonathan Cannon. Come on now.
It's a little more like a question than a pick. Okay. So
yeah, Jonathan Cannon.
Jonathan Cannon's the pick.
I'm going to say something nice about Jonathan Cannon here. What I'm going to say is that he has above average stuff plus, and he has a good fastball slider, situation. He does not have good numbers against lefties. What I'm hoping he does is just walk the lefties, get some of the worst lefties out, and play better than his Sierra. Last year, he had a 4.49 ERA and a 4.72 Sierra. This year is a 4.09 ERA and a 4.64 Sierra. Just hang around at that 4 level, and there are arms I like better on this list than Jonathan Cannon, but Logan Evans, I don't think, has a job long term. And I think that's a little bit of a question with some of the other guys on this list. So it was between Tobias Myers and Jonathan Cannon. And one thing that I just haven't liked about Myers this year so far is that the stuff seems to be down, and you can see the strikeout rate is down, and I don't know what's going on with that. So I may regret this, but for my final pick, Jonathan Cannon.
You actually get it one more, so I'm assuming.
Oh, then Tobias Myers, come on down. Here we go. Yeah. Two guys with jobs and questionable stuff right now. I did talk to Tobias Myers about throwing the changeup more. It is his best pitch by Stuff Plus. He just says that, you know, he doesn't think that he can place it that well. He just rips that pitch. But maybe he gets more comfortable with it as he comes back from injury. And that number there is the way that he adds Stuff Plus, adds whiffs. It's a very good changeup. And so I'm hoping that he kind of gets more comfortable with it and throws it more as we go forward.
All right. Trevor gets his fourth.
Not at all confident about that duo, though, as you can tell.
Yeah, I'm going to go Logan Allen because he is on the Guardians. And he's going to get innings. Like, it was between him and, I was going to say, or Tyler Alexander because he once struck out 10 straight in a relief appearance. That's all I got.
Yeah, that was weird.
He's still a record holder, by the way. Still holds the record.
Like, that record may never fall.
10 straight as a reliever. That's pretty crazy. Yeah,
that's hard. I mean, that's a pretty. How many times is that even? How many times have you even had
10 straight? 10 straight's only happened like 5 or 6 times in the history of baseball.
Yeah,
it's always by starters.
Yeah, and it's always been a. Sorry, I actually watched Nola do it to the Mets once, which was tough. It was a tough day.
It's a tough day. All right. So Tyler Alexander, so Logan Allen for Trevor instead of Tyler Alexander.
Corbin Burns did it once.
I should remember that.
Andrew Haney got 9.
That's got to be a fun search.
I don't think it's stinking around forever.
You know, if all the talk of Logan Evans, the thing about it, I'm going to take him because you got 2 guys working back from injury. I hope. Look, I hope for the sake of the Mariners, they're just healthy and they get back and it's fine. But the situation could just change. Someone else could break down.
Yeah,
I think he'll get some starts over the course of the year, even if both those guys comes back, because there's almost no chance the entire rotation stays healthy. And it seems like he's doing enough to maybe move past Emerson Hancock in the pecking order for those opportunities. So edge goes to Logan Evans. I couldn't believe it. I looked at the stuff numbers, and the slider and curveball are really good compared to the field here. So feels like okay value.
We did have some intel from within the organization of, you know, somebody putting their finger on Logan Evans and saying, this is a guy you need to know about. That was like a year or 2 ago. So I always like it when, you know, you're picking somebody that somebody in the organization that just really likes, you know. I did try to struggle with, like, why aren't his numbers better then? And I think, you know, somebody with an elite breaking ball could, you know, sort of suppress, you know, balls in play and not have great strikeout numbers in the minor leagues and still have success in the major leagues. I like these breaking balls.
I feel pretty good about this group of pitchers I ended up with, though. You know,
I like yours better than mine.
Burns, Bradley, Roki, and then Logan Evans is sort of a dart, hoping he ends up getting more innings. You end up with Sandy, Jackson, Job. I liked Cannon when we were prepping for this. I thought he kind of stood out to me as a late guy I would want. And then Tobias Myers did look a lot better last time out against the Astros than he had coming off the IL.
It's like, you know, getting better, getting healthier.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it for a lot of these guys. But I mean, Trevor ended up with Bybee as his first pick. Charlie Morton was, I think, a bit of a surprise. That one, if you're right about Charlie Morton,
I could have taken him.
Yeah, I think you could have waited a little longer on Morton. But
I think I'm either going to be so wrong or just like, you crushed it. There's going to be no in between.
Still got the breaking ball.
Still got the breaking ball. One more topic to get to before we go. Great piece from Alex Chamberlain at FanGraphs about Andrés Muñoz, and it's dense, as you know, put it in a good way, right? It just one of these things where the headline is Andrés Muñoz is an analytical blind spot, and it goes into some really interesting details. Great visuals in this piece as well. And the funny thing about it to me is that Andrés Muñoz throws hard. And as long as you don't throw hard in a very predictable way where the hitter can just anticipate the movement pattern, you're probably going to be fine, right? Like that to me is a huge part of what's made Andrés Muñoz successful, right? He throws so hard that his version of weird works. And when we were getting ready for the show, Trevor, you pointed out that as he loses velocity over the course of his career, the adjustments he's going to have to make are probably going to be pretty significant as a result of what works for him now.
Yeah, at least in terms of usage and fastball. I'll be honest, though. He has established his ability to throw a slider and his willingness to do it in any count so far. That also helps his fastball be that'll help kind of soften, I think, that decline a little bit. But the basic, I mean, for those of you at home, the basic premise is the fact that and we've talked about this a lot, but arm slot and hand position provide a set of assumptions for a hitter, right? And when they make those assumptions based on how the ball is going to move, the farther away from those assumptions matching up with what actually is happening is what more or less deception, a big part of deception is. It's like the Paul Sewald made, like everyone's like, how's he blowing 92 by everybody? Because he throws from a slot that looks like it's going to be a sinker, and it's a weird cutting righty four seam thing. And he, unfortunately, Muñoz, it lines up very closely, but he has a reputation for throwing 99, 100, which is one thing, and a reputation for throwing a lot of sliders if he needs them, or it's not comfortable with the fastball. And that is enough to keep people off his fastball enough. But it's not quite the swing and miss pitch that maybe other guys who have just throw as hard have. And that's, kind of what it comes down to. Like, I feel like another guy who has stuff that moves exactly the same way, but is also throws really hard but does get swings and misses, but not his fastball, is Helsley. Helsley, all his swing and miss is on a slider because it's the exact opposite of his fastball. It's a crazy whiff rate. And the reason it's that way is because he throws directly over the top and a riding fastball, and that's what people assume it's going to be. And so he gets the chases and everything on the other pitch that does the opposite. So that's what you have to try to get. With Muñoz, though, you can see it, or it moves the way you think it's going to move, but he just kind of bulldozes you. Edwin Diaz is similar. He's got a weird fastball that kind of like is dead zone if you look at it in a vacuum. And his slider's not like a heavy breaker, neither is Muñoz, but they're hard and they are willing to throw them in those counts. But we're seeing what's happening to Diaz with his velo being 95 to 97 as opposed to 100. And that like bull rushing doesn't work as much. And that's what Muñoz is going to struggle with. And he's got that violent motion. It's all part of the package. And when that's 96, it's going to be different.
You're talking about that velo and the assumptions that people, I think, make off of velo. And that was the kind of big revelation in the article, was that, when Max Bay did his Dead Zone app, we just talked about arm slot predicting movement. And so that makes sense. As a batter, you come to the plate and you see this guy's arm slot, and even if you don't do it in the front of your mind, the back of your mind is being like, okay, access side armor. We got side armor, and to some extent, Sewald, plays with that, and you're like, oh, side armor, but it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and that confuses you. And it takes multiple looks until you can kind of be like, okay, I know Sewald, I know, you have to kind of override your brain, and kind of, So the big question has been, Max Bay did not include velocity as one of those things. Now, I think Stuff Plus may capture this because Stuff Plus does interactions between all the different things and is just constantly asking, like, how do all these things go interact? So Stuff Plus may handle this, and Stuff Plus likes Muñoz, so that's a thing in its favor. But when you're talking about this dynamic dead zone, should you include velocity? Does velocity inform what a batter thinks the pitch will move like? And another way of saying it is, I just did a simple sort. Here's, all the guys by fastball velocity. So Mason Miller's at the top, obviously, right? And you kind of look at the top guys in velo, and Muñoz is 10th in the big leagues in fastball velocity, and he still has that Diazian fastball velocity that Diaz has lost, right? So in the top 10, for fastball velo, they almost all have plus movement, or at least dead zone to plus, right? They all have decent movement, vertical movement. Andrés Muñoz has the least amount of movement, in that group other than Seth Halverson. And then maybe the comp for him is John Duran, because they kind of have this sinkery four seam. You know what I mean? And so the hitter gets to the plate. He sees 99 and he thinks Mason Miller at the top. He thinks, Hunter Greene at the top, Mason Montgomery at the top. It's going to jump at me. It's big velo. That's what it's going to do. And so maybe there's some part of the brain that just sees velo and thinks like Helsley has great jump. Aroldis Chapman has great ride. Robert Suarez has great ride. Ryan Stanek. So it's all these hard throwers. It thinks, okay, hard thrower, going to have ride. And then when he doesn't have ride, it's deceptive in the other way. And so the sort of beginning of the question was, why does he get so many ground balls on this four seamer? And it's because possibly velo informs the dead zone. And so he created, he kind of created a new little way to look at dead zone. And I think it's plausible that a hitter might think this guy throws hard. Like, I think the opposite is pretty fairly true. Like, this guy throws soft. It's going to have a lot of sink.
Yeah. Or he's going to move a lot. Or I'm going to have to swing lower. Or I'm going to swing higher. It comes down to it. Like hitters, the assumptions they make is there's two things you have to do. You have to decide when you're going to swing and where you're going to swing. Those are the two. Yeah. Those are the two data points you need to know. And you try to set yourself up with the right assumptions so that you can kind of automate some of that stuff. And when the standard is, especially on guys with ride, it gets on you, it jumps, like you said, it seems harder. So like maybe getting started a little bit earlier. Now guys are a little bit,
and if you're doing that anyway because he has high velo, then you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to start early because I'm going to stay on top of this.
You're getting to the spot and then they're like hitting the top of the ball and they're grounding. And they're, what the heck? I'm used to that being in the square in the middle of the ball. And it's like, so the standard has gotten so good that guys who are below that standard are actually effective. Like that's a weird thing to think about, but that makes a lot of sense when everyone gets so nasty. Like everyone's got such a great breaking ball that they see so many good ones that if you throw a backup guy, they might look the worst they've ever looked.
He threw an 80-mile-an-hour cutter, and everyone's like, "What?"
Yeah, just so bad that what was it, the Maranta slider? It's
the backup slider.
And it was guys are just taking the worst swings I've ever seen on it just because it's something that just doesn't exist outside of him. So sometimes I think
it's also fair to wonder if, there's a fine line that, if he loses a tick, it gets much worse.
Yeah.
Then people sort of see him as, oh, this is mid velo and I see the arm slot and this is not going to be a righty.
Grouping him in with those guys. He gets grouped in more with the mid 90s guys. And now they're not worried about they're not worried about those things as much. And so they're willing to sell out.
And they see the slot, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of a lower slot. This is going to be a sinkery type thing."
Yeah. I'm really curious to see if Munoz makes adjustments before he has to, or if hitters react to him losing velo, and then
the kick change. Then no, I don't even know if he's thrown one in a game yet.
He's thrown like 3.
they are disgusting.
So there's something about
where they're going though. They're never.
No, I don't know, not really. But it's too early with it. But there's something about his makeup that I want to bet on it. He's so happy. He's a happy kid who's just trying his best. I don't know. Like I want to bet on it.
I think just him and Cal one day are just gonna be like, "There's a kick change day," and he's gonna throw like 6. And then he's gonna get like 4 swings and misses and just have a blast, and then he's just gonna throw it all the time. He's gonna be like Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly always got a new toy and then threw 80% of the time until someone finally threw him deep, and then he got back to his other way. He was.
Well, let's dream on that a little bit. Let's just say like the Mariners are a playoff team in 2025, and you see the same hitters a couple times in a series. Is that when you break something like that out for real? Like
pull a Presley
for October? Yeah, do the
versus the Astros and the ALCS.
just when he started throwing a changeup for the first time in his career in the playoffs. You're like, what are you doing?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that might be the way to do it. As long as you're able to work on it on the side and get an extra bit of confidence in it, then flip that switch when people are really not looking forward after they've seen you a couple times.
Tyler Clippard would do it. I know that. He'd just make up a pitch, throw it in that game.
There's a name I haven't thought about for a while. Classic, remember some guy, Tyler Clippard. Well, we are going to go on our way out the door. A couple reminders. You can get a subscription to The Athletic at theathletic.com/ratesandbarrels. You can find us on Blue Sky, enosaris.bsky.social, Trevor's I am Trevor May.bsky.social, I am DVR.bsky.social. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.